We're live.
What's going on, Ridge Runner Nation? We are here for our second live show. We've got the same panel as before, and we're excited to talk all things from beer, holidays, reflections on 2019, goals for 2020, and of course, Ridge Runner Nation members, Ohio Ultra Runner of the Year. Big results this year, so we're going to dive right into those. But first, let's do the intros again, and what's everyone drinking?
Why don't you start, Wesley?
Yeah, so I'm Wesley here. I'm actually in a custom studio this week, undisclosed location. I got the Bud Light this week. Kind of disappointed. I thought I was going to have Miller Lite, but Bud Light it is for me. What about you, Nick?
I've got a Maine Beer Company post-ride snack. It's a session IPA.
Lovely.
How about you, Michael?
Drinking orange juice from my sippy cup here.
Looking good. Looking good.
I had a Sprite, but I did just grab a the Mitten Brewing Company. You can guess that's out of Michigan. It's their Country Strong American IPA.
I've got a Royal Docks Brewing Company from Canton, a Centricity IPA. It's pretty good, but I also got a backup. Got some good old classic Jackie O's.
Nice. So before we dive into everyone's year and whatnot, how was the holidays for everyone? Everyone I saw, there's a little bit of travel. Travis, you said you were up in Michigan.
Yep, just got back yesterday. Up there for the New Year's. Got away for about 4 days from all the family and all the holiday hustle.
I just stayed home all break, and it was quite low key. Didn't do any running either.
Same.
What was your yearly stats, Wesley?
We'll get into that. Well, cool. So the reflection on 2019, I kind of just want to start before we go through everyone's goals. Obviously, we're joined by some pretty good ultra runners and some pretty all right ultra runners and myself and whatnot. So everyone basically had different kind of years. So I think it's kind of interesting to see like how we all kind of summarize our own years and reflecting on like what we thought each other's years were. So I don't know who wants to start with this, but basically like maybe summarize how your year went, how you thought it was going to go from the beginning, and maybe just your thoughts overall on how you thought your 2019 went running wise.
I can start, I suppose. So my year was pretty low volume in terms of racing. I think I completed 4 ultra marathons, road marathon, and just a couple fun 5Ks, but started off pretty well with second place at Mount Mitchell and a first place at Promised Land. And then kind of midsummer was my downer period. I DNF'd at Mohican, which was the Mohican 100, which was the first time I've DNF'd a 100 miler. So that was a little bit of a setback. Not really physically or anything, but just mentally, I was like, man, I believe I dropped out of that race, and I didn't like playing another 100 miler after that. And so it took me quite a bit of time to like kind of reset mentally and to get back into racing. So I didn't race from June until November when I got 4th at JFK, and then at Hellgate. I think we're going to get into Hellgate a little bit more, but that was my final race of the year just a couple weeks ago, and that was probably my worst performance from a placement and like performance standpoint. But I'll get into this a little bit later. But it was quite rewarding in the end, and so kind of up and down year. But all in all, kind of typical year for me. Just a little bummed that I didn't finish a 100 miler in 2019, and kind of the takeaway for me is not to take past experiences for granted, that I can just finish a 100 miler without being motivated to finish a 100 miler, and before I do another one, I'll have to make sure I'm motivated to do that.
And so most people know who you are, Michael, obviously, but maybe people don't know your racing strategy and like how many races you do per year. 4 to 5 is pretty much your wheelhouse every single year, right? You're not someone who does 10 ultras in a single season, right? Correct?
Yeah, I think I might have done 6 one year, but typically it is like 5 kind of on average, I would say. And so it's one of those things. Like, I guess my racing strategy, I've never really thought about too much, but I choose races and then I focus on them for a pretty long period of time. And I rarely run races for training. And so it's sort of like it's rewarding when I finish well, but then if I have a DNF like I did, then I have a huge chunk of my year where I don't race. And so it's kind of the risk and reward of like doing it that way. And but like I think, just maybe jumping ahead with 2020, I would maybe be more willing to jump into some races to get a little bit more just maybe training races under my belt. We'll see.
Yeah, that'll be exciting. Hopefully you can hop in some of those Ohio 50Ks and whatnot.
Yeah, I love Ohio races. Nick knows that.
Who wants to take the lead on second here?
I'll go second.
Oh, sweet.
So, my year kind of early on got a pretty quick shakeup. Got a new job out here in Denver. So, signed up for a bunch of races that I was really excited about. And then, unfortunately, races like Ohio Backyard Ultra went to the back burner, had to drop out of that. Still made it to Mount Mitchell. But I think just in terms of training, I wasn't really consistent early on. I was just kind of trying to adjust. Also have a brand new 2 hours a day commute here. So that's really fun to try and navigate, and just a new job. Not to make excuses. I mean, I have plenty of chances to get the miles in. I don't have kids. I don't have a family or anything like that. But I just kind of didn't really have the motivation just to go out there and train, which that's kind of typical for me anyways. I don't really love the training. I love the racing. It doesn't make or break a race for me, whether or not I finish high or finish low or anything like that. I really enjoy the experience. So I had a lot of fun getting to see a lot of new places in Colorado this year. I went and raced in Telluride and had, I guess, a few more DNFs than I'd like. Big DNF at Thunder Bunny 50K. That wasn't very fun. But still had a lot of fun this year. So.
Awesome. So I know that you were we talking about getting a new job and whatnot. You got that new job a week before Mount Mitchell, right? You flew out to Denver basically, and you told them hey, if I accept this job, I have to be able to come back to run Mount Mitchell. Is that kind of what happened, or?
Yeah. So the first week was kind of just onboarding and training, and supposed to be Monday through Friday. And I was like, look, I could start a month later for the next training cycle, or you guys could just give me Friday off. So they gave me Friday off so I could travel back here. Yeah, my very first week of being here.
That's awesome. Travis, I know you are excited for this one, so I'll let you have it.
Yeah. So unlike Michael, I race a lot. Well, at least a lot more. I jump in a lot of local Ohio races. And I think it's mainly just for, it gives me more motivation to go run a fast, I don't know. I usually only do 50Ks around Ohio. But it's kind of what I use for my speed workouts, I guess. I mean, I don't want to say a 50K is easy, because any 50K can still beat you up. But I'd say in general, I race a little bit more just because of, I try to use some of those races around here to tune up for some of my, what I would consider bigger races on my schedule. But, same as Nick, same as Wes, same as Mike. I went down to Mount Mitchell this year. I was kind of hesitant about even racing that race. And then, of course, last minute, I decided I was going to. We did a 5-mile run the day before. And it was feeling really good. But I had some lingering Achilles issues that it's always kind of bothered me. And sometimes when it flares up and you still want to keep training. But I think I was probably halfway back down at Mount Mitchell when I was in third. And I DNF'd. After that, I can't remember exactly what race was next. I think it was, I want to say one of those Ohio races. I think it was Buzzard Day. I think I kind of felt like I was, feeling good again and wanted to jump into 50K. So I ran a 50K in Ohio before as like a kind of tune up, I think, for GDR. Was doing well at GDR and then DNF there too. I just, between a few different things, some of that was Achilles flare up. Some of it was, a little disappointment in, how things were going from, the actual race standpoint, as it was, there was a lot of issue with the course markings. And that can really, I think I was in second place when I got lost, and it wasn't just me, it was quite a few people. It really kind of took my head out of the race. And, when you're racing up front and, there's some other really competitive people in there, it can kind of take you out of the race. Not that I'm saying I probably could have finished, but I was still having some Achilles issues as well. So I pulled out of that one probably a little bit too prematurely. But it is what it is. After that, we moved on to Promised Land. Felt good again ish. Didn't really have much training going into that. I took quite a bit of time off between GDR and Promised Land, even though they were both pretty early season races. But finished that one, felt strong, felt like I was, feeling good again. Then I completely forgot. I think I just blocked this out of my memory, but did 77 miles at Mohican and DNF there. I had a lot of DNFs this year. I have 4. I just I didn't realize that until I just wrote them all down. Technically 5 if you want to count that big. I did Bob's Backyard with you, Wesley. Sorry, I'm naming some other stuff here. I don't think that was for me to say I was. I mean, it was a fun style of race. It's not my style of race. It was on a good piece of property, but it's not what I like to do in running. Like once I'm kind of in my zone and I'm running, I'm just going to keep doing it. I don't want to be forced to, say I'm not supposed to run right now or have to take a break. But I think it's a great format for a lot of people that are trying to meet distance goals. Then I went out to, I had a really good lead up to my next race, which was Run Rabbit Run 100 miler in Steamboat. And again, DNF'd, but I had a pretty nasty injury during that race that, I would have kept going if I was even capable of going. My ankle swelled up to about the size of a grapefruit. I cracked it pretty bad as I was coming down the mountain and, took a pretty bad tumble. But then, so DNF there again. So we're somewhere between 4 and 5 DNFs right now. Then Regal Beagle 50K, just a local, 50K around Ohio, just trying to make sure I was just back in shape at least. Ran a decent time there. It's relatively flat. But it was kind of as a preparation for Hellgate 100K, which was just a little bit later, 4 weeks later, and felt good for that and finished that as well.
Yeah, I mean, your year is probably the most interesting one to follow from like an outside perspective. Obviously, it's just like the ups and downs and everything that you went through this year. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. I think, looking at it from last year, I had a really consistent year, no real big injuries or setbacks. And then to have to deal with some of them this year made it, a little bit more emotional, where it's like, this running stuff's stupid. But really at the end of the day, it's I still enjoy it. So I'm probably not going to stop anytime soon.
Well, that's good to hear. John, are you next?
Yeah, sure. Well, for me, for this year, I had one goal. I think I only ran one official race, and that was to do the Burning River 50 mile. And pretty much all year was focused on getting through that race, and I got through it, but there's some ups and downs during it where I power walked the last 18 miles because my knee was injured and I couldn't walk down the hills straight. I had to sidestep down all the hills. Going up was fine, but I think at some point earlier in the race, I got like really excited about the race and was kind of like not going with my strategy and just following and running with people. And so I was like bombing down hills way faster than I should have been. I wasn't trained for that type of impact or whatever. So I think that's what caused my knee to get hurt. But, you know, I looked at the clock at midnight when I got to like mile 31 or whatever, and I was like, I can walk. I can make it. And that was the whole goal, was finish. I mean, I wanted to finish in 12 hours or less, but, I still finished. First one. So was excited for that. So that was pretty much it. Took a couple months off after that and then restarted kind of building a strong base again so I can go into next year's goals. So
yeah, and for those that don't know the burning, oh my bad, Michael, those that don't know the Burning River 50, there's a daytime 50 and a nighttime 50. So John, I think you started the nighttime 50 around like what, 6 o'clock?
6 p.m. So I started that. The sole intent was to get that nighttime experience and get the experience of the course overnight for next year's goal.
Nice.
What about you, Wes? You ran quite a few races.
I actually only think I ran 4 races. I think, if I'm correct. I took a minute for me to reflect on this year because it was a weird year. I checked the stats yesterday. I only ran on 48% of days. So 52% of days I just did not run. But with that being said, I had 2 pretty good races and another good race, I'd say, for myself. So I started the year, like I said, what these guys said, at Mount Mitchell. I'd gotten 8th place finish there. Easily probably my best complete ultra. I got up, I think I was just up and down the mountain. So I think I was 5th at the top, probably dropped a few spots on the way down. I'm a better uphill runner anyway. So after that race, 3 weeks later was Ohio's Backyard Ultra. And I was feeling really primed and confident for that race. I had my best training block ever basically going into that race, and didn't work out. I ended up stopping at like mile 83. I thought I was going to go at least 120-ish that day. I thought that I had it in me. And basically, I don't really know. I think I just got behind the clock. In a format like that, when you only have to run like 4 miles in an hour, I came into the aid station inner loophole period twice with like 2 minutes to spare. And when you just start getting behind the clock like that, it's just really hard to recoup and get back out there.
I'll add a note to your Backyard Ultra run, Wes, since I was there for all loops.
Sleeping on some.
I think what got you behind was the Porta-John.
Yeah, probably. I mean, when you have to stop for all that stuff, so.
You had some stomach issues there, right?
Yeah, I think that was what inevitably was my downfall at OBU, was some stomach stuff and not being able to like really push past that. So Tim Crow says in the chat below, 120 plus. So he definitely got me that day. But yeah, it was a fun one. But I definitely was more motivated after that race just because I didn't do as well as I thought I did. Like I remember like less than a week later, I was doing the hill repeats. Probably I shouldn't have been, but like I was just so frustrated how things went. And so I decided to hop into Bob's Big Timber's Backyard Ultra, the other Ohio Backyard Ultra, about 6 weeks after OBU. And at that one, my goal going into that was kind of like just hit 100 miles and from there just figure it out. And then, but the problem that I ran into is like once you say, okay, I'm just going to hit 100 miles, it's hard to get yourself to get out of that mindset, like to go further. So with like 20 miles to go, I was like, okay, I'm just hitting 100. I'm just going to hit 100. And then when I did that, I just checked out. So did 100 at Bob's Backyard Ultra, and that was in May. And then I took the summer off, essentially. I don't think I ran too much. I was like dealing with some pain in the legs, just some soreness. I thought I could bounce back and run Mohican, but I was like super sore for most of the early summer. Got some good training in towards the end of the summer and ran the Shawnee 50. That was probably my best complete race outside of Mount Mitchell. I got 5th at Shawnee 50. Super competitive race this year after like it not really thought it was going to be on paper, but there were some really quick times. So overall, interesting year for me, having like 2 pretty good performances at Mount Mitchell and Shawnee, but the Backyard Ultras, I don't really know how to feel about them.
Nice.
So
maybe I'll comment real quickly on, I think part of the reason I don't race that much is because I direct races. And so I direct 5 races a year. And so I sort of look at those as my races as well. Obviously I don't place in them, but yeah, so that takes up a lot of my time, but it was really awesome. You talked about Backyard Ultra at West. That was a new race for me to direct. And it was probably by far my favorite race to direct. Just to be able to see every contestant, every loop, every hour basically, and being able to hang out at the start finish line. That ended up being probably my favorite race experience of the entire year. And so you might not have had a great experience, but I know the spectators definitely did. That was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, go for it, Travis.
I was going to say I would second that. From a spectator standpoint, that is an awesome format to watch because you never have to move and you get to see a runner all the time. So it keeps you engaged, but then there's still a lot of people there that don't, you're hanging out with them. It was basically like a, big celebration party of running and just hanging out with other people who run, which made that format and just that one general aid station really, really kind of cool.
Yeah, there's something really special about the backyard format, and we've been seeing people just absolutely crush those distances. So it's been awesome to follow along. Kind of moving past 2019, we're already into 2020. What's everyone's goals for 2020? I know that some of this is kind of fresh on your mind, obviously being the new year, but let's start off with Nick here. What's some of your goals for this year?
I feel like I'm kind of saying the same thing I do almost every year, but just trying to be more consistent, kind of find that groove of training. But I'm not gonna race any less than I normally do. So I think I've got 10 or 11 races probably on the calendar. So excited to get back to Promised Land. I would really like to. That's kind of like my early year focus, I'd say. I'd really like to crack 6 hours on that course, which is going to be a tall task considering I'm a lot less fit than I was 2 years ago when I ran that one. So that race is first. Not to steal a little of Michael's thunder, but I'm also in the Leadville 100 lottery. So we'll see here in about 2.5 weeks if I get into that one, but that'll take over a lot of the focus. But and then two really cool races on my calendar that I have are Speed Goat and the Rut. So both of those are 50Ks that I think by all accounts are probably the 2 toughest 50Ks in the country. They're just really slow, steep, nasty terrain kind of races, and that's what I like. Any chance I can run a little less is better for me.
Always good not to run.
That's awesome. Michael?
Yeah, looking forward. Just after Hellgate there 2 weeks ago, I took a little break. And so I've just started running the last few days, and setting my sights on the 2020 here as the new year approached. And like Nick, I'm running Promised Land. That's always, for now 4 years, it's been like my springtime focus. That race is really special for lots of reasons. And it's become kind of my springtime focus. So, 4th year in a row, I finished first there last year and 3 years ago, and second the other year. And so I'd like to, I guess at this point I'm running against a clock at that race. I'd love for it to be a really competitive race because that means the entire top of the race will be faster. But for some reason, that course record on that course is just really, really, it would just mean a lot to me to get it. And the mentor, Eric Grossman, he got me into ultra running. One of my first mentors in the sport has that course record, and I watched him set that course record that day. And so I'd love to go down there and just give that a run because it's super stout and it takes a lot of things to go right, a little bit of luck and a little bit of competition to get it. And so I'll be focusing on that in the spring with Mount Mitchell before that again. And then my summer is kind of dependent on the lotteries, like Nick said. I'm in Leadville lottery. So I'll find out here at the end of the year or end of the month about that. And if I don't get into Leadville, odds are I'll probably go out west and do like the Bighorn 100-miler or something in that range, or maybe even do the Bighorn and Leadville. They're 2 months apart, and so those are some of the things I'm thinking about at least. And then kind of a switch up here recently. I got an email from Lazarus Lake here, and I'm in the top 20 of the wait list for his Big Dogs Backyard Ultra, and that's an October race, and that's like that's the original big Backyard Ultra, and that's kind of this, as he calls it, the World Championship Backyard Ultra now. And so, if I do get in that race, I'd hope I find out earlier than later. And then, after my summer of like Leadville or whatever, I would probably focus on that race. And so that might just end my year.
Would you ever stop in a Backyard Ultra? Or are you going to run like 400 miles at that point?
I mean, when you're out there training, like I did a 4-mile run this morning. I was like, oh, I could do this, for days and days and days. But then obviously, like, I have no idea. I never ran past 101 miles. So I have no idea. I have a lot of curiosity. I think that's the main thing for me, is just curiosity and competition. And that race at that venue would be, those two things would be exposed. And so I'd probably do a lot worse than what I think I would.
How would you train for it? I know you have some pretty specific ideologies behind how one should train for a Backyard Ultra. So how are you going to go about it if you get the chance to run the race?
Just like in all of life, it wasn't that I had a lot of ideologies about how to do it. I had a lot of ways to not do it. Like, what Isaac and Ian Akers was doing there last year. But I'm just a hater on the certain training methods. But I was actually thinking about kind of the motto for my Backyard Ultra would be, it's not how long you can run 14:23 pace per hour for 4 miles. It's how long you can run 14:23 pace in the worst of conditions. So like I would train for that, like you can't just go run 14:23 pace, for training when you're feeling good. You have to put yourself in situations where you're feeling really, really bad, maybe in bad weather or whatever, and then can you run 14:23 pace for hours upon hours? So I think that's where some people kind of get lost in the training. They're like, oh, all I have to do is train for 14:23 pace, but like that's not what you're training for. You're training on running 14:23 pace when you're 150 miles into the race. So that doesn't really answer the question, but that's at least an idea.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anything else to close out your year?
My poor performance at Hellgate there, I didn't get that puffy jacket, so I'd love to go back and finish top 10 and do, just run a little bit more of my potential. But that race, you don't like have to sign up or send in your application until like October. And so, that's just like one of those things. Like I would love to do it if I'm feeling good for it and approach it with a good attitude.
Yeah, Eric Anderson in the chat said, I was proud to see Michael push through Hellgate. As a mid-packer, it's nice to see an elite not quit and push through on a tough day for everyone.
Yeah, well, I quit at Mohican, and so I didn't want to have that feeling again.
Yeah, that's awesome. Travis, the horse, you going to get back on it this year?
We'll see. Feeling good, feeling, kind of rejuvenated. Like Mike said, I took some time off as well. I mean, not as much, but last 2 weeks I've been running twice a week, just really kind of, spending time with family and not really doing a whole lot outside of that. But for next year, probably won't start up anything till March. I'm either going to do just a Ohio 50K, or I think I might go down to Virginia for the Belmont 50 miler. Then in April, I've got Mike's little 13-mile half marathon that turns into basically a road race, even though it's like 2,000 feet of climbing. There's going to be a few pretty fast guys there. That would be Iron Furnace. And then 2 weeks later in April, Promised Land 50K, which, hopefully I can bring a little bit more speed there this year. I was probably 15, 16 minutes back from Michael, coming off an injury, not really well trained. So I'd really like to improve my performance there. I ran well there last year. I just think I have potential to do a lot better there. That race suits me pretty well as well. I mean, I know Michael, it suits him really well, but I think I didn't show my best performance there, not even close. May, probably just to keep with things. I have a backup race if I don't get into my lottery. But if I do get into my lottery race, I'll probably just do like a local 50K. And then August is the lottery race. So I'm in the waitlist lottery for Cascade Crest. So that's August 29th. I really hope I get into that race. I really, really, really want to race that. And I need a Hard Rock qualifier again this year because my ticket expires. So my backup race, if I don't get into Cascade, is Cruel Jewel. I don't really want to run that race, but I think I'm going to. But I really hope I get into Cascade Crest. It's just a beautiful race. I've heard nothing but good things about it. So we'll see. If the season's just rolling right along and, things are feeling good, if this goes anything like 2018, I might do Pinhoti 100. And then I'll more than likely end in December with Hellgate 100K because I would like another puffy jacket.
That's awesome. John, I know that you're probably the next one that's training for a 100-miler right now. Do you want to take over here?
Sure. Yeah. So given with my running the back 50 for Burning River this past year, it was intentional to get that nighttime experience going into this year for Burning River 100. That's my main goal is to get my first 100 under my belt. So I've got the Rocks and Roots Trail Series coming up here in next weekend, I think. Yeah, next weekend, and then a month later in February as well. They're both 50Ks. I think Jason Roop's in the chat. I think he said he was going to be there as well. Are you running the 50K?
I talked to him a few weeks ago, and he said he was.
Cool. So the nice thing I like about that race is it's in January, February, so it's miserable. So it's ideally for a good mental trainer, and it's a loop course, so I can kind of, if I need to call it quits because I'm freezing or whatever, I can, but that's not the goal. And then I think after that, I'm going to go back around for a third time at Athens Marathon just because it's such a boring race, but for some reason it was my first marathon, so I like to come back and do it every once in a while, I guess. And then me and my sister are trying to get into the 7-mile bridge run down in Florida. You guys ever heard of that?
No, but I'm into it.
But yeah, so it's really hard to get into it, but you run across, they close the whole side of the bridge and you get to run the 7 miles down there in April. And it's like a big old party afterwards. So kind of excited to do that one, more of a fun race. And then I'm trying to find some sort of maybe 50 mile or 100K early spring to line up for the Burning River. And then after that, I have nothing planned after the Burning River. I'm kind of going to let myself recover. I don't know how I'm going to do. I don't know how my legs will do. So I want to make sure I have enough time to recover from that. And then maybe sign up for something in the fall if I feel good. But if not, no big deal. So.
Yeah, no, your Road to 100 series has been fun to follow along. So
yep, we should have a couple more episodes coming out real soon. It's been difficult with the holidays to get that kind of editing done, especially not being here at the house with the computer to edit with. So,
no doubt.
Well, Dalavaki family too, right, John?
Huh?
Lots of cookies in your family too.
Oh
right?
yeah. I got some to drop off at the running store. So if anyone visits OVRC at some point, I got some cookies to go there. But I did not gain any weight this holiday season though with all those cookies, which I was pretty happy about. So that's a good goal. I maintained.
That's a win.
Yep.
That's a win.
Looks like you gained some weight.
We'll see if I have some more wins in 2020. Right now, I decided I didn't really know what my goals for the year would be. I said yesterday on Strava, I don't know if I'm going to run 300 miles this year or 3,000. I feel like that's if we were doing Vegas odds, I feel like it'd be somewhere in the middle there. But the past 2 years, I've actually been down on the mileage train. Back in 2017, I ran about 2,500 miles. In 2018, I ran 22. This past year, I was at just over 1,800. So 2 down years again. And I just kind of want to get back onto the maybe more consistency and trying to like build up to higher mileage basically. So I think for me is I'm just going to start the year off like how I did 2017 with a run streak. I don't know. I don't think it'll last all year long, but kind of just getting that consistency. Like, hey, I'm going to run every single day. So that's basically my big goal for 2020 right now.
Have you ran the last 2 days?
I have run. I ran 1 mile yesterday, and then I ran today. So that's two for 2 so far. I am in Mount Mitchell Challenge coming up in February. I'm definitely not as in shape as I was last year. I'm on the wait list for Ohio's Backyard Ultra, just kind of seeing how the things fall there if I'm in that one. Cam Wrench has been trying to convince me to run the Wham 100, Gary Robbins race in September. So I don't think it'll happen, but hopefully I can just backload my year with like a Shawnee 50 and then a 100 miler after the Shawnee 50. So that's most likely my big game plan.
Sweet.
But this, we had some pretty solid runners for Ohio Ultra Runner of the Year this year. We have 5 or 6 contestants, finalists on men and women's side. Let's give some love to last year's. We got Travis Zipfel is here, our inaugural men's Ohio Ultra Runner of the Year last year, and Lee Connor also was last year's winner. So
what? You couldn't get Lee Connor on the show?
I'm sure we could have.
I think she would have loved it.
Oh, definitely.
We'll have to get her on.
Yeah, we'll have to get her on. You guys are probably
she would have had a good beer. She would have had a good beer to share with us too.
Definitely. Better than Michael for sure. But John, you want to kind of start going through some of these performances? Let's start on the men's side. These are kind of in no order. These are just who we thought were the top 5 finalists for Ohio's Ultra Runner of the Year. And then from there, we're going to open up voting for about the next 3 days or so. And then Ridge Runner Nation can vote on who they think the Ultra Runner of the Year is in Ohio. And we'll go from there. So go for it, John.
Cool. Well, let's jump in first. First name up here we got is Owen Glick. He's got a second place finish at Fools 50K, as well as a first place finish in the Cleveland Trail Championship 50Ks. First place finish at Mohican this year. Canal Corridor 100 first place, Burning River 51 first place, and JFK 50 miler 15th place. So does anyone have any comments about Arlen Glick's performance this year?
I'll just start off by commenting and say that if I was voting on an official panel or like a voting panel of Ohio's Ultra Runner of the Year, I would probably weight 100 milers a little bit more. I know like in the national Ultra Runner of the Year panelists, I know some of them have stated that they like weight 100 milers a little bit more. And so I think that Arlen's 2 100-mile wins, like, you know, not everybody is winning 100-mile races, are probably, you know, we'll look at the other ones, but I think that sets him potentially ahead of the rest. And so, yeah, that was impressive.
Yeah, I mean, Arlen ran Mohican 100 on June 15th, and less than a month later ran 14:19 the Canal Corridor 100. And then, 2 weeks later, decided to hop in the Burning River 50, where he won that race and ran 7 hours and 24 minutes. So, I mean, just his month there alone was just incredible. So,
and 14:19 at the Canal Corridor for 100 milers.
Moving.
Yeah.
All right, next up, we got Alex Gold. Got a first place finish in the South Mountains 50K in 4:24. First place at Thunder Bunny 50K this year at 3:49. And then we've got a first place 50 from Mohican, 6:44. And Wasatch. Wasatch. How did I say that? I only messed that one up, didn't I? Wasatch 100, like 12th place, 25 hours. And the North Face 50 California, 25th place in 7:47.
All right, Nick, how do you weigh Alex's performance this year?
Well, so going off of like what Michael said, I think 100 milers are certainly a plus in terms of voting Ultra Runner of the Year. I think looking at competition and also time. What kind of performance they put up is important when weighing those things. So 50 milers and things like that are certainly good. But for Alex, that CR at Thunder Bunny is super impressive. Might have even been a little faster had the course markings been in place for him to just blow right through. And then I really like the Mohican time is huge, but I really like the fact that he is challenging himself going after a race like Wasatch. That's a super tough 100-miler, probably something that's way outside of his comfort zone. And he just went out there and I think put in a pretty solid performance, probably went through some tough times during that race, but still gutted it out for a good finish for such a young guy. And then closing the year with that North Face race. I know, Michael's run that one a couple times as well. And I've been there. It's a really hard course. Even though it's runnable, it's still 10,000 plus feet of climb and descent. So that's still a super good year to someone who's really new in the sport. And I think someone you can put right in that is who we just talked about, is Arlen, someone who's steadily progressing as a new face in the sport.
I think it's kind of interesting too. Like, there's some more names on our list here, but those two are sort of maybe stand out from the rest a bit. Although there's another name down below that I think had a solid year. But if you just compare like the end of the year races for Arlen and Alex Gold like JFK versus North Face, I don't exactly know how Alex's day went, but I would definitely say North Face is more competitive than JFK, like way more competitive. But I do know that Arlen didn't have a very good day either, and he finished 15th at the oldest ultra marathon in the country. And so it's kind of interesting to compare those two because they're both pretty young. They both had a really good first half of the year, and then their least impressive performances were at the end of the year, but very competitive races. So like Nick said, you got to give them props for like putting their nose into some pretty competitive races. That shouldn't get you any like bonus points or anything because it's still about the result in these rankings. And so that's what I'm looking at. But I would vote Arlen in front of Alex just by a hair.
Well, I'm glad that you're not voting because you're next on the list here. John, do you want to?
I already told you guys that I wouldn't even put myself in like the top 50.
You still got some impressive times and finishes here. I mean, you've got the Mount Mitchell Challenge where you got second place this year. You got first place at Promised Land. Not so good at Mohican. Hellgate, you did pretty. I mean, just 20th place. I mean, you're still like pretty quick. And then JFK, that right there is extremely impressive, I think. And that was a really hard, stacked group with the first place, second place. Them guys reaching like 5:30s or whatever on that. That's just very impressive and hard to compete with. But overall, I think it's a good year for you still.
Yeah, like I said, I was happy with the year, but I think in terms of like ranking against other people, I just once again, like last year, I didn't have the volume, didn't have like the quantity of races, and then like last year I had a big win at the Grindstone 100. This year I didn't have a 100 finish, so that's why I don't even think I'd put myself on the top 5 of this list here.
Well, you made it.
I think if you don't put Michael Owen in front of those results, I think
I'm not saying I wouldn't face off
that belongs
guys
in the
any
top
time
5
of the year, but I'll put myself against them any day. But just you just got to go with results. So Arlen, I beat him head to head. I basically got Alex lost in my one race that he came to, and so
Arlen got you at Mohican though, whether you count it or not in your head.
I didn't even run that race. I'll just sign up.
All right, kind of going off the next person here, the fourth person is who I think had one of the most impressive years of his running career, and that's Gabe Rainwater. Gabe had an unbelievable year. He Ohio's Backyard Ultra, he got second place, 125 miles. 6 weeks later, he copied me, said I'd do Bob's Backyard Ultra, except he got second place there again, 133 miles. Then went to Mohican 100, where he ran his best Mohican time ever. He's done that race a billion times. he got third place in 18:41. North Coast 24 hours, he made it 110 miles in third place. Big's Backyard Ultra, he went down there and crushed his other two Backyard Ultra performances, 150 miles there, 11th place at the NF thing. And then ended the year with a tough race at Bigfoot 50K, where he actually struggled a little bit. I went back on his Strava to make sure that like he did run that race, and he got 12th there. So pretty awesome year for Gabe. He just had so much volume. And Travis, I know you have some thoughts on at some of Gabe's races. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, so I think he had an absolutely spectacular year, but it's just really hard to look at how do you weight these. I think he found his niche, and it is, he can outlast many. He is an incredibly strong runner, but it's where do you get, how do you, like, if you were going to say this is, it's hard to weight some of the backyard ultras, incredible places, and I think he's going to outlast everybody except for maybe one person on this list. But I think he is just an incredibly strong runner, and Mohican, he absolutely crushed it. After last year 2018, I talked to him, and I think I ran like an 18:30 there last year, and he ran an 18:40 this year. I remember talking to him, and he's like, I'd cut off my right leg for a time like that. And then he goes and just basically puts down that same exact time the next year. I mean, you can't even speak to how good of a year he actually had. And I think he really found his niche with kind of the last man standing races. So I think he had a spectacular year. It doesn't look as pretty as wins at 100 milers or wins at 50 milers, but it's really hard to gauge how well he did. But it's 125 miles, 130 miles, 150 mile. Like, not a lot of people are going out there doing that.
It's true.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have won, go for it.
The thing I have to say about Gabe is, and this can't really be factored into necessarily maybe Ultra Runner of the Year voting, because you're just looking at this year, but this guy has just gotten better every single year. Sometimes, of course, there's like a down year, Mohican or something like that, but the guy's got 12 finishes at Mohican. I remember 2 years ago, his goal was just to crack 20 hours. And like Travis said, like going, mid 18 hours like that is just so impressive. And even looking at those backyard ultra results, every single one he's just gotten better at. So it's almost just like whatever he puts his mind to, whatever he starts working at, he's getting better. And I don't expect him to slow down anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely crazy what he did this year. John, do you want to?
Yeah, sure.
Wrap this up here.
This next name has been mentioned multiple times already in the chat, but Harvey Lewis had a fantastic year as well, with first place finish at the beginning of the year at Rocks and Roots 50K, his third place at Long Haul 100, fourth place Iron Furnace. He ran 156 miles for second place at Dawn to Dusk 24 hour, and very impressive finish with third place at Badwater 135 this year. North Coast 24 hour first place 130 miles, and then even got a 14th place finish at the IAU 24-hour World Championship, which was in France this year, with 160 miles. So, like, very, very stout series of runs this year for him.
So here's my bold take of the night. I think Harvey Lewis is the Ohio Ultra Run of the Year. I know I said that Arlen was ahead of Alex, but Harvey is ahead of Arlen. So he would be my vote. Whenever voting comes out tomorrow, that you guys put that out, I'm voting Harvey Lewis first, because his best performance, in my opinion, was the IAU 24-hour World Championship. He finished 14th place. It wasn't like he was on podium, but he ran 160 miles. He made the world team, which is only 7 people from America do that. And then he PRs in that distance. And he also was a very important piece of the American team winning the gold medal at the World Championship. And so, stack that on top of third place at Badwater. You know, arguably one of the hardest, most grueling foot races in the world. You know, so that's my vote. Good job, Harvey.
You're just saying that because he ran the Paw 4 miler.
I mean, that puts him over the edge a little bit.
It's the cherry on top.
The Paw on top.
That's the Paw on top.
And the Iron Furnace.
Yeah, I mean, I like Harvey. You know, it's nice that a lot of these guys have ran my races, and so I've gotten to know a little bit of them a little bit. But Harvey's a standout guy. He's done so much for the sport in Ohio and Cincinnati and all around this region and worldwide. I mean, I just saw he ran a run in his 100th country just recently. So he's a world traveler and really inspires people. He's a teacher. He commutes to school every day. And so, yeah, I'm not weighing this stuff into the voting, but what he does on top of that is really incredible. And so Harvey for the win.
Yeah, so to recap the men's finalists, it's Arlen Glick, Alex Gold, Michael Owen, Gabe Rainwater, and Harvey Lewis. So those are your top 5 male finalists for Ohio's Male Ultra Runner of the Year. Now on the ladies' side, this is where things got really...
Sorry, one comment.
Go for it.
Just to stir the pot here. The last year's winner didn't even make the finalist fail. So that's just... I mean, I just wanted to say that.
It could be considered as a Madden curse. You know, like once you win it, the next year you're gonna kind of have a little down year. We'll see if it plays out.
That little badge that he sewed onto his puffy jacket that says OUROY was a curse.
Yep. But all right, so let's move over to the ladies' side. There were some awesome results here. I mean, we were going through it before the show. We were going back and forth on like 5 to 7 different names, and I think we finally got it settled down. John, do you want to start us off at the top here?
Sure thing. First up, we've got Connie Gardner with a early February finish. First place finish at Jackpot Ultra 100, 18 hours, 15 minutes. A fourth place finish at the Super Bowl 50K. Second place finish at the Burning River 100, 20 hours. 6 days in the Dome, first place, 420 miles. Tussey 50 miler, 5th place. And Tunnel Hill 100, 5th place. So good year for her. So what do we got on that? Any comments?
Yeah, Nick, do you want to take this one?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, Connie's just pretty much a legend in Ohio. I think anybody who runs trail races or ultras, especially in Northeast Ohio, knows her name. She's known way outside of Ohio too. She's a staple of Western states and a lot of those big races every year. For me, I mean, she's always top 5 at Burning River, it seems, and really close there. But that 6 days in the Dome result, 420 miles. I mean, hard to even wrap your head around that. And then the range of that too, because, you know, also not factored into this, but last year she was at Desert Solstice and I'm pretty sure she set a 50K record on the track there. So just, you know, she's got a lot of range and she's always putting up these solid results.
Next up on the list, we've got Emily Collins. And Wesley, do you want to go through some of her races?
Yeah, Emily was a name that I basically just found out about. But she ran some awesome races. I was going through, she started the year off with the ComSat 50K. She got 4th place there in 4:04. Crazy. She ran, oh, here we go. Sia Sitch, 47K. Anyone know that one? I knew that I was catchy. I was like, this is going to be like the rundown all over again. I have no idea how to say this name's race, but she got 18th place there. It's a pretty competitive race. Dawn to Dusk, 24 hours. She got 12th place, 65 miles. She bounced back quickly, though, and ran the Ethan Allen 24-hour race and got first place there with 118 miles. Just 2 weeks after that, she ran the Burning River 100-miler and took first place there with time of 20 hours and 1 minute. Super quick turnaround there. She did a Spartathon 246. I don't really know what this is, but I know that Nick does. But she got 17th place there in 33 hours and 59 minutes. So I don't know what that race entails, but it's a long time to get that one done. And she rounded out her. Yeah.
Oh, that's a pretty huge race, right, Nick? I think that's like 17th
from
place
Spartan
there.
to Athens or Sparta to Athens or something.
Like, you know, Dean Karnaz kind of made that famous, and Scott Jurek won that race a couple times. And like 17th place. I don't know like the depth of that field, but I would imagine 17th is like, you're up on a pretty high pedestal in Athens, Greece there, if you can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a huge race for her. And then she rounded out the year with the Tallahassee 50K, taking first place there. So Emily had an awesome year all around, kind of doing a lot of different stuff. So
Cool. Next down on the list, we have Alexandra Del Zappo. Did I say her last name?
Yep.
Oldie Girdled Grit 50K. I can't talk either.
Old Girdled Grit.
Old Girdled Grit.
It's a Cleveland race. You should know that.
I've been in Athens 10 years. I don't know. First place, 420. The Ohio's Backyard Ultra, 6th place, if you want to call it a place, 75 miles there. The Lakeshore 4 Hour, first place, 31 miles. The Burning River 100, 3rd place. And the IAU 24-Hour World Championship in France in 129th place with 71 miles. So also a really good year and very impressive making it out over to the World Championship.
Yeah, I mean, just another solid year. The O24, I don't know if that's Ozark 24, or I think it's the Kirtland race up in Cleveland as well, but 2nd place there in 119 miles. Solid race at Burning River and whatnot. So she had a pretty stout year. Had to include her on the top 5 for the finalists of this award. Going off next one, this person had a crazy year of running. Amanda DeBevick, another Cleveland runner. She ran 12 races, it looks like. I'm not going to count them here, but she also ran the Old Girdled Grit 50K, 2nd place there. Super Bowl 50K, 1st place there. Georgia Death Race, 14th place there. Heiner Trail 50K, 3rd place there. Cruel Jewel 100, 10th place. World's End 100K, 5th place. Lost Turkey 50K, 1st place. Ute 100 miler, another big race, 4th place there. She decided to show up to this race called the Grindstone 100 miler. She took 6th place there. Mount Mascus for the heck of it. Why not? 2nd place there. Oh, let's just do another local Ohio race, Regal Beagle 50K, a couple weeks later. 3rd place there. And might as well close it out with one more race of the season in the Hellgate 100K, where she took 6th place there. So you guys want to talk about Amanda's big year?
I'll just summarize real quick that list. I think kind of like my ideas with like Harvey Lewis, Emily Collins went over to Spartathlon, like it's a world type event, and she finished in the top 20, and then she won Burning River over top of Connie Gardner, who's also on this list. So you have to kind of like weigh the head-to-heads as well. And so, Amanda DeBevick has a really deep top 5, top 10 finish list, but she doesn't have like a defining win, whereas Emily Collins has that defining win plus the international top performance. Although, what I do have to say, like Connie Gardner's 6-day thing, I have no idea how to judge a 6-day 420 miles. 420 is a lot of miles, I would think, but and that's probably like an age group world record too, I would imagine, with Connie. But I would say like Emily's like defining Burning River win and her international performance at Spartathlon.
Yeah, it's definitely, those are some of the heavy hitters. Obviously, there's 2 more. We actually have 6 on the women's side. Just couldn't really pick between them. So we got Lee Connor here, and Lee also had a big year. She was last year's winner. She ran Georgia Death Race. She got 8th place there. We get the PR Mohican. She got 1st place there. Hellbender 100K took 2nd. Eastern States took 2nd 100 miler there. The Idaho Mountain Trail Festival, this race I never heard of. Pretty big race though. 7th place there. And then No Business 100 took 3rd place there. So if you're looking for someone who just went out and like crushes 100-mile races, Lee Connor.
You haven't heard of the IMUTUF or whatever? I'm tough.
No, I did not.
You should check it out. It's a really challenging 100-miler, right?
It's in September. Wes, you should put it on your schedule.
Yeah, I mean, it took her 31 hours and she got 7th. So it's a super tough race, I'm assuming.
I think for a lot of the East Coast people too, just a lot of people don't realize, and myself included until recently, how mountainous Idaho is. Idaho, they say if you take the elevation and flatten it all out, that Idaho, or if you flatten out every state, Idaho would be the biggest state in the whole country. and that's including California that has a huge area and the Sierras and all those big mountains too. But Idaho's super mountainous.
Nick, you have a cigarette in your hand?
It's a pen.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry.
He's taking notes.
Nick's definitely doing all of his homework for this, getting this ready. He's the one who threw out this next name. So our final finalist on the women's side is Beth Bauer. And she ran 3 races this year, but just the magnitude and how she did in those 3 races, you have to include her on this race. So the weekend 50 miler, she took second place there. Doggone 50 miler took first place there. And then the Grindstone 100 miler, she won, and she beat Amanda Bevek, I believe. So she got the head-to-head win there. Mm-hmm. So how do you think?
In 24 hours, that's a really great time at Grindstone too.
Yeah, so it was just super tough to obviously pick the women and the men this year. I think there were a lot of great results. Like I said, recapping the women, it's Connie Gardner, Emily Collins, Amanda Bevek, Alexandra Del Zoppo, Lee Connor, and Beth Bauer. So those are your 6 finalists for Ohio's Ultra Runner of the Year. Pretty awesome stuff. I know going a little bit over here, but we'd love to talk a little bit about the Hellgate 100K that Travis and Michael ran. I know that I'm down.
Okay. Travis, you gotta go to bed?
No. I'll call in sick tomorrow.
We appreciate the effort.
Got at least 4 hours of being awake.
Awesome. So you guys ran the Hellgate 100K. Was that like 2 weeks ago now?
Going on 3 weeks, really, I think.
So how did that race go for you guys? Break us down. Maybe tell us a little bit about the race for people that don't know, and then kind of go into how your days went, or I should say night.
So Hellgate is 100K, aka 66.6 miles, kind of fitting the bill of hell and the gates there. And it's a race by Dr. Horton down in Virginia mountains, and it's 12:01 a.m. start, 14,000 feet of elevation gain, paper entry, and like 2 months before the race, and he sort of just like emails you in late October telling you, or you got into the race or not. And so kind of an old school race, been going on almost 20 years, I think. And it's just a really cool, close-knit community of runners. And you really feel that. That was the first time I've done that race or even been to it. And you felt that at the race. The director of the camp where the race starts, like he's not an ultra runner at all, but like he sang a song about Dr. Horton and Hellgate. And, like a couple hundred people in the room just kind of like listening to Horton talk for an hour and a half in his pre-race brief, which is very, very Horton-esque. So anyway, that's like the synopsis of the race. It's a very grueling race, and weather always seems to dictate the race, or be a central factor of the race. And so this year, the weather was like mid 30s, maybe low 30s on some of the mountain tops, and rain. Like sort of the worst weather, and it was pretty hard rain a lot of the time, which was caused a little bit of fog at the tops of the mountains, and it also caused some ice on some of the gravel road. And so it was pretty grueling. Some of the people that's ran the race lots of years said it was.
I think Michael froze.
You lose Michael.
He appears to have frozen. Where he was talking is some of the people who have ran the race in past years did state that this was, in contention for probably one of the worst years that, they have had there. It would have been a little bit different. It was about 34, 35 degrees, and it rained for about the first 9 hours. So had it, just dropped 4 more degrees and gotten down to 31, I think it would have been, a lot more people would have had a little bit better day. It was just really hard for some people to get their gear right. I know I was kind of, worried about what I was going to wear, what I was going to put on, where my hand's going to stay dry. I've always struggled with issues with my hands. But overall, I think the fog slowed people down. The rain slowed people down. The guy who won, still a very impressive time. But I think there was just, good moments for some people, bad moments for other people. And we got Michael back. So Michael, you're on mute, but I'll go into how my race kind of went, and then I guess we'll have Michael explain a little bit of how his went. I was feeling pretty good, at least decently good for about the first 20, 25 miles. And then about mile 25, maybe 26, just kind of started to lose some energy. Didn't really think about how far I actually had to run that day. It was kind of a weird race for me because 100K just it doesn't sound like it's short. It's certainly far, but it just seems very easily obtainable, where you don't actually realize how far 100K is with 13 or 14,000 feet until you're out there halfway through it and you're like, oh, this is actually farther than I was kind of ready for. I think I let that get to me a little bit, and some other stuff, but I was in first and second place, about mile 26, and I walked in probably the last 3 or 4 miles to mile 30-ish aid station. Everything was just soaked and wasn't really having a good day. By the time I got to mile 30 aid station, I think I was probably in like 13th, 14th, 15th place. I don't really know. But finally got some food in me and ran out of there, and everything started to click again. And over the next, 30, 35 miles, I managed to work my way back up to 4th place, taking off a lot of people that had passed me when I was walking, or I think I was at the aid station for about 30 minutes. But, overall, I think I really do want to run it again just to try and be more consistent and, focus some training towards it. I think, I'm going to speak a little bit for Michael here, but I think him and I both kind of just put it on our race schedule, not really specifically training for it. It was just like, oh, it's end of the year. We both ran a decent amount of miles this year. Let's see what we can do. And I'd like to go into it next year with maybe a little bit more training.
Definitely. Like, what time was it when you're at the aid station at mile 38? Like, what time of night was it? Like 4 a.m. or something like that?
At 38, I don't think it was 4 a.m. I don't run 38 miles in 4 hours. But I'd say, 6 or so. I walked a little bit. So it was, the sun was coming up in the next 2 hours. So just getting ready to, starting to feel tired. But got food in me, got some energy in me, and was able to start pushing on again.
For sure. Michael, are you back with us?
I am back. I hope. Yeah. I think
awesome.
Internet
you
just
went
out for...
no worries. If you want to dive into your race and.
Yeah. So at the top of the show, I had mentioned kind of in my recap of the year how Hellgate might possibly have been maybe my worst performance from like a placement standpoint and time standpoint of all my ultras in my career, but quite possibly and probably the most rewarding to this point too. And I only say that try not to brag in terms of like 20th place being bad for me, but in all cases I should finish like I do in some of my other Virginia area races or mountain races that I've done in the past. And so, probably should have been top 5, top 10 on a decent day. And I just had a lot of things go wrong from the start. And I can't even blame the weather because everyone was running the weather. There for a while, I was like, oh man, like I'm just doing horrible in the weather. And, but all 150 runners are running that weather. But, I do factor in like JFK being 3 weeks before and completely different race. Like Travis said, like, I was wanting to run well at Hellgate and train well for it. But I put all my training into JFK with like the specific training, flat, faster runs, completely different type of race. JFK has like 2,500 feet of gain the entire 50 miles, and Hellgate has that in the first climb. And so my calves were jacked up from JFK, and maybe that was because of some poor training leading up to JFK. But I felt that even in the very first like uphill at Hellgate, I felt my calves kind of locking up, similar to like the way I felt after JFK. And so I knew it wasn't going to be great in that regard, but I thought I could just sort of run that out. And so I was kind of like in top 5 there for the first 10 miles, and then just sort of went through some low patches really early, like before 15 miles. And I don't know if I just didn't prepare with the cold and the rain and the clothing, but I just got so cold, and would just have to like try to convince myself to run to stay warm, and fell back like at mile 20 to like 20 something's place, and then sort of rebounded. Like I was kind of wanting to drop out, and I was talking to some of the aid station workers and Dr. Horton, and they like convinced me to move on, and I'm glad they did. And so like I had a little like second wind in the middle of the race, like around 25 to 30 miles, got up to like 12th place again, getting close to top 10. And then I got so cold again, like around 35 to 40 some miles. And I walked a lot, ate a lot of food, changed clothes a couple times, and I was like back in the 40th placement in the race. And at that point I'd already talked to Dr. Horton, race director, and he was telling me how I just really needed to finish, and took his urging to heart, and just set my goals on that, and ended up just kind of like having a pretty decent last 10 miles, nothing to write home about, but I ran and felt pretty good, and sort of felt like I should be finishing the race at that speed if I would have had a normal day. And so I finished 20th. Happy that I finished, because looking back, I just, like everyone knows that feeling of finishing a race, but finishing a race after having such low moments and bad performance in my own mind felt even better, and so it was really rewarding. Having Dr. Horton after the race, he told me that he was more impressed with my finish at Hellgate than he was at my win at Grindstone. And so I'm just really glad to have that on my resume now, instead of just, a DNF and to go home to Ohio without finishing the race. So that was my Hellgate, and it kind of makes me hungry for more.
Hey, Michael, how did that cold and rain compare to Bighorn a few years ago? I know you went through some pretty tough times there with not having the right jacket and struggling. I think that was maybe about halfway through that race.
Mm-hmm.
Did you draw on that experience at all? I
did. I thought about that a lot, but I think the biggest difference was that Bighorn's a tad bit warmer. Like the low temperature was warmer, but then again, maybe it was colder up top, because at Bighorn it's just an out and back, and the high point of the race is at 50 miles, and I was in that very similar, like nearing hypothermic stage at Bighorn, and I felt that same thing at Hellgate. The only difference was that Hellgate I like couldn't get warm, and Bighorn there's a warming tent, like they had that set up, preparing for people like me who got too cold. And I stayed in this warming tent with like all this like hot, nice stuff for like an hour before I got warm and got back out. Whereas like Hellgate, if I couldn't get warm, then I would just have to drop out. And so that sort of was like the hard part, knowing I couldn't really get out of it without just having to kind of like move on. And so pretty similar though, like waterproof jacket kind of in both cases were like the lifeblood, and even waterproof jackets weren't enough. Like it eventually got through. And so like I think looking forward, I was talking to my wife about this, like I basically just need to have like 3 waterproof jackets, 3 waterproof gloves, 3 of everything, because you're going to go through all of them.
Or you could take trash bags.
Yeah, you're right. I mean you didn't change clothes at all, and I changed like 4 times, and I was still cold until the sun came up like the last 2 hours. And so maybe you're right. Maybe just old school trash bags is
emergency solution, but it
Yeah.
it kept me in because I know everything you said is just clicks right with me too. There was no
Yeah.
chance of dropping out. I mean, you're just in the rain. There was no warming tents. There were no fires. It was just cold, dark, rainy until the sun came up, and then it started to stop raining a little bit.
That was beautiful Saturday morning. But something else that I sort of draw on and reflect on with the Hellgate 100K to move forward with, taking away a positive, and Travis got a really good result in the end as well. But for all of us who finished that race and got through it, is like the more defining situations in ultra running, the more experiences that you get through those hardships, is the more times you can look back on them in the future. Like I'll probably encounter another crazy bad weather day again, or maybe just a really bad low moment in any type of race. And those are the types of races that define ultra running and define your own kind of journey through the sport. And so I think it's just kind of like a very great experience for that.
Yeah, before we wrap up here, Eric Anderson just had one more question, and it was like, did you guys stop at the aid stations for a long time? He said that he had to make really quick stops just to not get cold and just go.
Travis?
Yeah, I mean, the only aid station I was at for any amount of time was probably that mile 30. And that's where I was really contemplating everything about that race. But then, after that, after I started to get some heat back in my body, I was at him for enough to get some food in, but then I just wanted to keep moving. So I mean, long enough, not as quick as maybe a summer race where I'm just filling water bottles up, taking food with me, because I was had gloves on, stuff wasn't easily accessible in my pack. So I did have to take a little bit more time. I want to say, I was at that one aid station for at least 20 minutes, mile 30. But then after that, they were, 3-4 minute aid stations, 3-4 glasses of Coke, sandwiches, any fruit, and just got out and kept going.
Yeah, for me, besides maybe like the Bighorn 100 miler, this was probably the most time I'd spent at aid stations in a race. I did think about like needing to move to get warm, but for me, in the moment at least, like the aid stations were my lifeblood, and like I said, I changed clothes several times, and I really ate a lot. Like the one aid station, I'm blanking on the name right now, but like with 20 miles to go, I think I had 1.5 hamburgers, probably a pound of bacon, a bunch of sausage links, a bunch of pierogies. Like I probably ate enough calories to fuel the rest of my 3 days. And so it was all hot food too, like tomato soup and ramen noodles and stuff. And that was all one aid station. And so looking back, that was like probably a 15-minute stop. But I was also where I like got new clothes and really had to reset myself, talk myself out of dropping out again. So I didn't seem to get cold at the aid stations as much as I was running, because I think the aid station served as a warming up location for me. So
cool. All right, before we wrap up here, I got one more quick little question we're going to go around and say. But looking forward towards 2020, what is the single most exciting thing that you guys are looking forward to? Wesley, hit it up first.
Oh, just putting me on the spot.
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited to see Ohio's Backyard Ultra this year. I think that this race, there's some really competitive people. I think year two, I just think that it could be really special. I think that race is actually going to be the highest affiliate Backyard Ultra in total miles ran. I think that it'll be the only one that'll beat that will be the Big's Backyard Ultra. So that's what I'm most looking forward to seeing in 2020.
Travis?
So my 2020, I don't want to make it selfish about me, because Wes kind of is making that about everybody. But I really hope I get into Cascade Crest. I think it suits me really well. It's not super high as far as altitude. I think it gets up to like 6,000 feet maybe. It's around 20,000-ish, 23,000 feet of climbing. So, I think if I get in, I'm going to really put a lot of stress and focus on my year for training specifically for that race. Because, I was talking to Michael a few weeks ago. It might have been when we were at Hellgate. But to have a really big performance at a West Coast 100-miler is, I think that really says a lot about the caliber of, athlete or, your training. A lot of people can easily dismiss an East Coast runner. So to make a little bit of a name for yourself on a West Coast, well-known, well-established race would be a, really big goal of mine. And I think it'd be a really cool thing to do.
Sweet.
You got this, Travis. You're going to do great at it. And I was just looking at the Cascade Crest applicant, the wait list thing or the lottery thing. And there's only like 150 people on the lottery. And
I know. I hope it stays that way.
They have to let more people in than 150. So odds are pretty good for you.
Yep. I hope so. We'll see.
What are you looking forward to, Michael?
So I guess I'm looking forward to just my summer. Like the plan is, and we've done this a couple times in the past, my family and I, my 2 kids and my wife, I race direct basically for my living and teach some classes at OU, and my wife's the school teacher. So she's off in May, end of May, and doesn't have to be back until August. And I have a free summer. I sort of maybe like purposely don't direct races in the summer. And so I'm looking forward to going out. The plan is to just kind of go to Colorado, set up camps in the national forest. We have some locations kind of pinpoint from past trips out there, and just camp and hang out with my family and train in the mountains, and maybe just kind of like pick up camp, maybe go to California or go down to New Mexico or up to Wyoming for weekend trips and stuff. But maybe or just like I'm looking forward to just spending 3 months perhaps in Colorado and in the West. So looking forward to that and training in the mountains.
Sounds awesome. How about you, Nick?
Seeing you a little bit, Nick, hopefully.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, I'll think I'll pass on that too.
I'm looking forward to. Well, I mean, I am looking forward to Ohio's Backyard Ultra. I can only echo everything that Wes said about that race. Excited to be able to participate this year. So flights are booked and everything. So that'll be super fun. And then I don't want to jinx it, but it sounds like maybe Laz is pretty confident that Michael might get in to Big's Backyard. So I'm really excited to see if that happens and how he would do there, because the field down there at Big's it's incredible. I mean, it's probably even double as competitive as it was this past year. So that would be super cool too. So looking forward to seeing how that shakes out.
Are you saying you're crewing for me?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Nice. A handshake here. Yeah. I still owe you a pacing duty too, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty good at staying up late, so Big might be a good one.
Yeah.
All right, John, back to you.
All right. So for
I know
me,
John's big goal.
my main thing I'm excited for is just finishing 100. That's that. But I think what I might be most excited about more is spending time working on this channel and growing this channel more. So this year is going to be a hard hit, especially with me being done with most of my master's work. I'm going to have a lot more time to focus on Ridge Runners and grow some of the videos and things that we're working on. So I think that's what I'm most excited about this year. But it's exciting. So I want to thank everyone for hanging out with us tonight. We went a little longer than an hour. Stayed up way past Travis's bedtime. But it was a good time. We hope you all enjoyed the show. Thanks, Travis, Michael, Nick, Wesley, for joining us this evening. Any last words?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Set your alarm, Travis.
Happy New Year.
Bye.
See you guys
later.